In my previous life, the dog emperor, in order to fulfill his promise of one lifetime, one person with the green tea concubine, set fire to the entire harem, killing me and all the other concubines. But unexpectedly, not only did we survive, we were all reborn. In this life, we no longer scheme against one another or adhere to those outdated notions of female virtue. Our common goal is to eliminate that despicable couple. In the 3rd year of Yongqing, a fire broke out in the Baohua Palace. It claimed the lives of me and all the concubines who were praying for blessings in the palace. But for some reason, after we died, our souls didn't go to the underworld. Instead, we all lingered in the Baohua Palace. Seeing her beautiful body reduced to charcoal, Lady Yan lost her composure and immediately confronted me. How could you, as Empress, be so negligent in your duties, allowing such a disaster to occur and costing me my life? Yao Pin chimed in. Yes, Empress. Such a massive fire has never occurred in the palace before. If you had devoted some of your attention to the palace affairs instead of the emperor, none of us would have perished in the fire. I was filled with resentment, but suddenly saw the emperor embracing the newly arrived Rong concubine. Zheng concubine, upon seeing the emperor, sighed sadly. The emperor loves me most. Yet now I am about to die. How heartbroken the emperor must be. But before she could finish, the Rong noble lady in the emperor's arms pouted and said, The emperor burned all the sisters in the harem to death for me. So many lives lost, it truly troubles my heart. What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Could this fire not have been an accident? Soon, the emperor clarified our doubts. Holding Rong Guirin close, he said affectionately, I promised you, Yuner, that we would be together for life. As for these women, they were all brought into the harem because of court politics. Each of them schemed against me for the sake of their families. Only you, Yuner, truly love me. Hearing this, a surge of unbearable anger erupted in my heart and in the hearts of all the concubines. This Zhu Song, in order to seize the throne, had gone to great lengths to flatter my father, who held military power, and had begged my father to marry me to him. After ascending the throne, he took Yan Zhuyu, the daughter of the chancellor, as a concubine to stabilize the kingdom, and all of you concubines were also brought into the harem by him to solidify his power. Now that the court is stable, he has burned us all to death for his so-called true love. And that Rome noble lady, with her innocent and helpless expression, but the wolfish ambition in her eyes is too blinding to ignore. This fire must have had her involvement as well. All our souls gathered in midair, clawing and snarling toward the emperor and Rong Guirin, intent on killing them to avenge ourselves. But just as we were about to touch them, we were sucked into a blinding light. When we woke up again, we were back in the 1st year of Yongqing. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself sitting on the empress's throne in the cunning palace, with all the other concubines seated below me. I suddenly came to my senses and noticed that the expressions of the other concubines were also very subtle. When everyone's eyes met, concubine Zhang asked strangely, Are you all also come back? Well, everyone has been reborn. We returned to the 1st year of Yongqing, when Zhu Zong had just ascended the throne. Consort Yan slammed her teacup on the table and laughed coldly. It's true that heaven has eyes. It couldn't bear to let me die without knowing the truth. So it gave me another chance at life. This time, I'll teach that pair of dogs a lesson. What about you, Empress? I took a sip of tea indifferently. What's the big deal? Just replace the emperor with someone else. What do you think, sisters? The other concubines, upon hearing this, all knelt down with fervor. We, the concubines, will follow the empress's orders. After everyone had declared their loyalty, Lady Yan couldn't wait to ask, So, what should we do now? Of course, we must first bring them into the palace and then take good care of our dear Xiaoyun. In her previous life, Rongyuan was selected during the imperial beauty pageant in the third year of Yongqing and retained by the emperor. She was the daughter of a low-ranking official, with a delicate and beautiful appearance, though not exceptionally striking. As a result, she was granted the lowest rank of beauty upon entering the palace, and the emperor showed her no special favor. At that time, Cui Xiaoyun was in the palace, as inconspicuous as an invisible person. Thus, the intrigues among the concubines did not affect her. But little did anyone know that she was the one Zhu Song truly cherished. His neglect of her was merely a means of protecting her. But this time around, they won't get their way. 3 days later, after finishing his state affairs, the emperor came to the cunning palace. Seeing his weary expression, I thoughtfully instructed the servants to prepare water and have the maids attend to his bath. Seeing me call the maids to attend him, Zhu Song was somewhat surprised, because in my previous life, I had feelings for him, so I always handled matters concerning him personally. In my heart, I truly treated him as my husband. But this lifetime is different. This lifetime, I only want him dead. After Zhu Song finished bathing, I spoke to him tenderly. Your Majesty, I have a request. What is it? Speak freely. Today, my mother came to the palace and mentioned my younger brother's marriage to me. She said that when my younger brother accompanied her to burn incense, he fell in love at first sight with a young lady. To express his love for her, my younger brother wishes to request the emperor's permission for marriage. Upon hearing this, Zhu Song paid no heed. Such a trivial matter. I will draft an edict tomorrow and ensure your younger brother marries in style. By the way, which young lady has your younger brother set his sights on? I replied with a meaningful expression. She is Xiaoyun, the daughter of Cui the imperial censor. Zhu Song's expression suddenly changed. Who? Cui's Xiaoyun? Yes. Your Majesty. Yesterday, my younger brother saw her and was so captivated that he couldn't eat or drink. That's why he asked Mother to go to the palace today to request the imperial decree. The emperor's expression was not good, but he had to play along with me. You begged for an imperial decree to marry her after seeing her just yesterday? Isn't that a bit too hasty? I think it would be better to take more time to look at the noble ladies in the capital before making a decision. After all, the Cui family's status is too low. Marrying them would be a bit of a stretch for my younger brother. I took the opportunity to say, Your Majesty has a point. Granting a marriage should not be rushed. Speaking of which, I haven't even met the girl yet. Why don't I have her come to the palace tomorrow so I can take a look? If she is indeed a good match, I will request Your Majesty's permission to grant the marriage. Seeing that I had conceded, Zhu Song's expression finally softened. However, he still couldn't sit still and got up to leave. Xu Yao. I remember there are still many memos waiting for me in the Hall of Austere Government. I won't be able to accompany you today. I'll come see you another day. The next day, I sent someone to summon Cui Xiaoyun to the palace. But to my surprise, my messenger returned empty-handed. They said that the Cui family's daughter was ill and unable to rise, so she couldn't meet the empress. I sneered to myself, thinking that the emperor had acted quickly. Last night, I had just mentioned the matter of the marriage to him, and he had already sent someone to the Cui mansion to deliver the message. However, it doesn't matter. I summoned my trusted court physician and said, Since Miss Cui is ill, take my imperial edict to the Cui mansion and examine her thoroughly. If she is indeed ill, you shall remain at the Cui mansion to treat her until she recovers and can return to the palace. If she is not ill. I said no more, and the palace attendants understood my meaning, rushing off to the Cui mansion. Sure enough, Shortly afterward, palace attendants reported that Miss Chui had entered the palace to pay her respects. As soon as Chui Xiaoyun entered the palace, she was accidentally splashed with tea by a young palace maid, soaking her skirt. To appear before the empress in such a state was a grave insult. The palace maid took her to an abandoned hall and went to fetch her clothes. I was certain that the emperor's spies would report this incident. At that moment, the concubines were coming to pay their respects in the cunning palace. Upon hearing that Chui Xiaoyun had entered the palace, they were all eager to see their enemy from a previous life. I took a sip of tea and said meaningfully, "Sisters, please be patient. Wait a little longer, and there will be a good show to watch." 2/4 of an hour later, I summoned my personal palace maid. "Shi-Ying, why hasn't Miss Chui arrived yet?" "Your Highness, Miss Chui has soiled her dress and is changing in the Qingfeng Hall." I feigned surprise and said, "Soaked her dress? I suppose it's her first time in the palace. And she's nervous. Well, I'll go greet my future sister-in-law myself." Empress Zhang immediately said, "The Empress's sister-in-law must be a charming and talented young lady. Why not let us concubines come along to take a look?" Thus, I led the other concubines in a grand procession to Qingfeng Hall, where Chui Xiaoyun was staying. What followed was a truly fascinating spectacle. Upon arriving outside Qingfeng Hall, the guards left behind by Zhu Song had already been discreetly dismissed by my men. Now, the courtyard was empty, with only a few indecent moans echoing from within the hall. Hearing the sounds, the concubines were startled. What? What is going on? What is going on? Let's go inside and see." I pushed open the door and walked in, with the concubines following closely behind. As soon as we entered the hall, an intoxicating fragrance filled the air. I covered my nose and approached, only to see two people passionately embracing on the bed. Seeing this, I shouted sternly, "Who dares to act so boldly in the palace? Bring them here! Drag this pair of dogs away!" My shout startled Zhu Song and Chui Xiaoyun, who were reluctant to part. Zhu Song snapped back to his senses and pushed Chui Xiaoyun away. "Empress! Empress! How did you come here?" Hearing this, Chui Xiaoyun hurriedly gathered her clothes and bowed awkwardly before me. "This servant, Chui Xiaoyun, greets the Empress." I timed my performance of anger perfectly. "Chui Xiaoyun, I summoned you to the cunning palace to pay your respects. How dare you be alone with the Emperor?" Behind me, Yao Pin joined in the commotion. "What's there to ask? Your Majesty, it must be this seductive woman who tempted the Emperor. A girl who hasn't even been married yet dares to seduce the Emperor into committing adultery in broad daylight on her first visit to the palace? She's truly a fox spirit. Even if she ruins her own reputation, if she tarnishes the Emperor's good name, she deserves to die 1,000 deaths. Please, Your Majesty, order that this fox spirit be dragged away and beaten to death with sticks to maintain palace discipline." As soon as Yao Pin finished speaking, the other concubines echoed her words in unison. After all, the agony of perishing in a fire in their previous lives was not something they wished to experience again. However, Chui Xiaoyun, relying on the Emperor's support, was not particularly afraid. So I added fuel to the fire. "Your Majesty, I believe the other concubines have spoken wisely. As the saying goes, without rules, there can be no order. This woman has openly seduced the Emperor in the palace. She deserves to die. I beg the Emperor to hand her over to me for judgment." Hearing this, Zhu Zong's face turned pale, but in order to appease the concubines, he had no choice but to take the blame upon himself. What happened today is not the fault of Miss Chui. It was I who mistakenly entered this place and could not control myself. It is not her fault. If my mistake leads to the loss of an innocent life, I cannot bear it in my heart. Seeing this, I said sadly, "No wonder. Yesterday when I asked the emperor to grant me marriage, he looked reluctant. It turns out that Miss Chui is the one the emperor truly desires. If that is the case, the emperor could have simply told me, and I would have welcomed her into the palace. But the emperor said nothing, yet now he has become involved with Miss Chui. Is the emperor humiliating me? Or is he humiliating the Duke of Hua's family? This statement escalated to a political level, and Zhu Zong was immediately flustered. What are you saying, Empress? You have been diligently managing the palace affairs, and your father and brothers have been fighting on the front lines to defend the borders. How could I ever disgrace you? You are overthinking this. To be honest, I have only met this Chui Xiuyun twice. How to handle this matter is entirely up to you, Empress. Chui Xiuyun, who had been confident, panicked upon hearing this. Emperor, you can't abandon Xiuyun. Although Zhu Song said this, he knew I wouldn't dare to contradict him in public. Since that was the case, I would just play along with this adulterous couple. So I said, since the emperor has feelings for Chui Xiuyun, this servant is willing to help the emperor resolve this matter. However, since Chui Xiuyun has openly seduced the emperor in the palace, this servant will take the initiative and have her enter the palace as a concubine of the lowest rank to serve the emperor. What does the emperor think? Upon hearing this, Zhu Song sighed in relief. Then let it be done as the empress commands. Chui Xiuyun was somewhat displeased, but since Zhu Song had spoken, she could only comply. But what they did not know was that Chui Xiuyun's entry into the palace was the beginning of their downfall. 2 days later, Chui Xiuyun entered the palace discreetly, although Zhu Song had strictly ordered that the events of that day not be disclosed. The other concubines and I naturally did not comply with his wishes. Thus, in the days that followed, rumors spread throughout the palace about Chui Xiuyun losing her virtue to Zhu Song on her first day in the palace, even reaching the ears of the Empress Dowager. Not only that, but outside the palace, rumors were also circulating wildly. As for Chui Xiuyun's father, as an official of the censorate, he had been reported by his colleagues and had lost all face to appear in court. Chui Xiuyun entering the palace under such circumstances must have been deeply dissatisfied, and Zhu Song would certainly compensate her generously. After all, this life was different from the previous one. In the previous life, Chui Xiuyun did not exist in the harem, so the concubines had no reason to trouble her. But in this life, I have exposed her to everyone's scrutiny, and Zhu Song can no longer hide her. The only way to ensure her survival in the harem is to shower her with favor. Therefore, in recent days, I have been lavishing praise on Chui Xiuyun, giving the impression that I intend to promote her, in order to lower her guard. Under Zhu Song's protection and my proactive advances, Chui Xiuyun grew increasingly arrogant, even daring to be disrespectful to concubines of higher rank than herself. One day, the concubines came to the cunning palace as usual to pay their respects. Seeing that the time had passed, Chui Xiuyun finally arrived late. She bowed to me calmly. This concubine arrived late to pay respects. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Yan Guifei, who was seated below me, spoke with a displeased tone. You've only been in the palace for a month, and you already lack proper etiquette. If this continues, what will become of you? Facing Yan Guifei's provocation, Chui Xiuyun replied with a touch of pride. Your Highness may not know, but I attended to the emperor all night last night, which is why I rose late. The empress is so kind and forgiving, I'm sure she won't blame me. After she finished speaking, I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up my teacup, gently lifted the lid, and sipped the tea slowly. After putting down the tea bowl, I said casually, paying respects is indeed not a big deal. Before Chui Xiuyun could react, I continued. However, recently, Several concubines have come to my palace to complain, saying that you are taking advantage of the emperor's favor, becoming arrogant and disrespectful to your superiors. I have no choice but to punish you. However, considering your merits in serving the emperor, I will punish you by having you kneel outside the cunning palace for an hour. This matter will be considered settled. Cui Xiaoyun looked unconvinced and tried to speak, but my personal maid immediately grabbed her hands and forced her out. Seeing this, I continued to hold the bowl and drink tea, my expression unchanged from start to finish. An hour later, it was just the time when Zhu Zong was dismissing court. I was certain that someone from Cui Xiaoyun's entourage would request Zhu Zong to come and support her. Sure enough, not long after, Zhu Zong received the news and hurried over. Cui Xiaoyun was kneeling alone in the rain, looking like a delicate white flower battered by wind and rain. Upon seeing Zhu Zong, she burst into tears, her tears streaming down her face like rain, pleading with Zhu Zong to take her side. Zhu Zong was furious and rushed into the hall to defend his beloved. He disregarded the servants present and spoke bluntly. What does the empress mean by this? Xiaoyun has only been in the palace for a month. What crime has she committed that you punish her so harshly? You know I love her, yet you humiliate her like this. Are you trying to shame Xiaoyun? Or are you trying to shame me? In my previous life, Zhu Zong often intentionally favored certain concubines to stir up conflict among us, pitting us against each other to consolidate his power. Whenever Zhu Zong turned against me, I would always be at his mercy because I truly loved him. But this time, I only felt hatred toward him. So I said calmly, "Your Majesty, please calm down. This concubine punished Lady Cui because she violated palace regulations. If I did not punish her, it would not serve to uphold palace discipline. But there was no need to make her kneel in the rain for so long. Xiaoyun has always been frail. Punishing her like this is truly cruel. I remember when you first entered the palace. You were so gentle and kind, even unwilling to harm a cat or a dog. How could you become so unreasonable now?" These words were too harsh, as if she were trampling on my face. So I knelt down and pleaded for forgiveness. "Your Majesty is correct. I am indeed unworthy of such a position. If that is the case, I am willing to return the Empress's seal and crown and step down from my position. As for the position of Empress, please choose someone else to fill it." After speaking, I instructed Shering, "Go, bring the Empress's seal and crown to the Emperor." Seeing this scene, Zhu Zong was startled. "Empress, what are you doing?" I merely spoke a few words in jest. "Why has it come to this? Please rise." Zhu Zong came to help me up, but I gently brushed his hand away. "Your Majesty, there is no need to indulge me. In this palace, those who have done good deeds should be rewarded, and those who have committed crimes should be punished. Since I have committed a crime, I am no longer worthy of being Empress. I beg your Majesty to depose me." This time, Zhu Zong was truly panicked, sweat pouring down his forehead. He had only intended to support his beloved, but he never expected me to be so fierce, demanding to be deposed over such a trivial matter. Deposing the Empress is a matter of great importance that affects the stability of the empire. Moreover, Zhu Zong's maternal family is not prominent, and he was originally unqualified to become emperor. He only ascended the throne because several princes fought among themselves, leaving him to reap the benefits. When he first ascended the throne, neighboring countries were eyeing him greedily, hoping to take advantage of the new emperor's unstable foundation to launch an attack. It was my father and brothers who were tasked with stabilizing the border turmoil and forming an alliance through marriage with him, which finally helped Zhu Zong stabilize the situation. That's why he hurriedly changed his words. "What are you saying, Empress?" I was merely worried when I saw Lady Cui lying in the rain. "In truth, you did nothing wrong today. Lady Cui violated palace regulations and deserved punishment. I did not mean to blame you. Do not mention the idea of abdicating the throne again. I am deeply in love with Xu Yao. A mere beauty like her cannot compare to her. I raised my head with a subtle expression. Does the emperor truly believe that this servant is without fault? Of course. Upon hearing this, Cui Xiuyun looked at Zhu Song in disbelief. Your Majesty. Then this servant. Shut up. Zhu Song quickly cut her off. You violated palace regulations first. The empress was justified in punishing you. If there is nothing else, return to your own palace. I must accompany the empress for lunch. In the end, today's matter concluded with Cui Xiuyun leaving in disappointment. After Zhu Zong accompanied me through lunch, he went to the Hall of Austere Governance to attend to state affairs. To make the charade convincing, he even pretended to punish Cui Xinyun with a month of house arrest to appease my anger. But deep down, he must be heartbroken. In my opinion, he won't last 3 days before sneaking off to the Xilan Palace to see her. That suits me just fine. In the days that followed, Zhu Song used the excuse of being busy with official duties and didn't set foot in the harem at all. But my spies in the palace reported that every night, Zhu Song would have Cui Xiuyun dress up as a young eunuch and go to the Hall of Austere Government to attend to his writing. As for how she attended to him, I knew all too well. So I had someone secretly replace the soup that Zhu Song gave Cui Xiuyun every night with a fertility potion. According to ancestral rules, after a concubine served the emperor, it had to be recorded in the records to ensure that the royal bloodline was not mixed. If Cui Xiuyun was confined to her quarters and became pregnant during this month that was not recorded, she would suffer greatly. The month passed quickly. After her confinement was lifted, Cui Xiuyun came to the Cunning Palace to pay her respects. Looking radiant and completely unlike someone who had been confined for a month. This time, she had learned her lesson well. She had finally realized that in this palace, Zhu Song was not the one in charge. Unfortunately, her confinement had been lifted, and she had not yet conceived. So there was nothing I could use against her. However, Zhu Song probably feared that I might harbor resentment. So even after Cui Xiuyun's confinement was lifted, he did not openly summon her to his bedchamber. Instead, he spent every night in the Cunning Palace. I knew that Zhu Song was trying to push me into the spotlight, forcing me to compete with the other concubines. This way, his heart would be safe. But I and the other sisters have all been burned once before. We still remember the pain of the flame spreading across our bodies. How could we let him have his way? However, to avoid arousing suspicion, I and the other concubines played along with the charade of jealousy and rivalry, so that Zhu Song would not grow suspicious. But the spy in the Hall of Diligent Government reported that Zhu Song often secretly summoned Cui Xiuyun to serve him. After each time she served him, he would give Cui Xiuyun a bowl of soup to prevent her from getting pregnant. But what they didn't know was that Cui Xiuyun never drank the soup to prevent pregnancy. Instead, she drank soup to help her conceive. Heaven did not disappoint me, and Cui Xiuyun finally became pregnant. On this day, when it was time to pay respects, Cui Xiuyun arrived punctually as usual. Today, I had specially burned a stronger incense in the palace. As soon as Cui Xiuyun sat down, she couldn't help but gag twice. I was surprised and asked, "What's wrong with Cui Xiuyun? Are you feeling unwell?" "Your Highness, I may have an upset stomach, but it's nothing serious." I was still worried and said, "Please ask the imperial physician to take a look. You are the person the emperor cherishes most. So I won't feel at ease until the imperial physician has taken your pulse." Cui Xiuyun probably never imagined that the soup she had been drinking every day to prevent pregnancy was actually a fertility soup. So she agreed to let the imperial physician take her pulse. After the imperial physician examined her carefully, he hurriedly reported, "Your Majesty, the beauty is pregnant." I was stunned and exclaimed, "What did you say? Pregnant?" Imperial Physician Jiang. Don't speak nonsense. Your Majesty. I have been a physician for decades and can confidently say that the beauty is indeed pregnant. Already over a month along. Hearing this, I was furious and slammed the table. This is impossible. Cui Mei hasn't been in the Emperor's chambers for nearly 2 months. Where could she have gotten pregnant? Zhang Guifei understood and immediately stepped forward to slap Cui Xiuyun across the face. You dare to betray the Emperor? Who is your lover? Cui Xiuyun was knocked unconscious by the slap. Coming to her senses, she panicked and defended herself. No. It's not like that. I haven't betrayed the Emperor. The child in my womb is the Emperor's. I looked at her in disappointment. Now that things have come to this. Cui Mei, are you still trying to slander the Emperor? The records from the Imperial bedchamber show that you haven't attended the Emperor's bedchamber for 2 months. How could you possibly be carrying the Emperor's child? The Emperor has not yet returned from court. I will have you taken to Shokong Palace and handed over to the Empress Dowager for judgment. The Empress Dowager was originally the daughter of a low-ranking official. She only became Empress Dowager because Zhu Zong usurped the throne, allowing her to rise to power through her son. She disliked crowds and had always avoided paying respects to the other concubines. At that moment, I ordered my men to gag Cui Xinyun and take her to Shokong Palace. The other concubines followed closely behind, spreading the accusation that Cui Xinyun had committed adultery and was pregnant. The matter caused a huge uproar, even though Zhu Song later proved that the child in Cui Xiuyun's womb was his. A king who had secretly engaged in illicit affairs with a concubine during the day and a concubine who remained restless even during her confinement period were both subjected to multiple accusations by the officials. Upon arriving at Shokong Palace, I immediately reported the matter to the Empress Dowager. Upon learning of such a scandal within the palace, the Empress Dowager was so enraged that she nearly fainted. To purge the palace, the Empress Dowager ordered that Cui Xinyun be given an abortion potion. Cui Xinyun was silenced, unable to speak, and no matter how she tried to explain or struggle, the Empress Dowager remained unmoved. She ordered her attendants to hold Cui Xinyun down and force-feed her the abortion potion. After all, since the founding of the dynasty, the imperial concubines' nights with the emperor had always been strictly recorded to ensure the purity of the imperial bloodline. Even the most reckless Emperor Zhao had never dared to break this rule. The Empress Dowager probably never imagined that her son and Cui Xiuyun would act so recklessly. Now, the situation was completely chaotic. Judging by the time, Zhu Zong would be leaving court soon. He wondered how he would clean up this mess. When Zhu Zong hurriedly arrived at Shokong Palace, he was shocked beyond words. After all, Cui Xiuyun had drunk the abortion soup every time, so it was impossible for her to be pregnant. But he asked the imperial physician and learned that drinking the soup did not completely prevent pregnancy. So he breathed a sigh of relief. But when he saw Cui Xiuyun bleeding profusely from her lower body, he was stunned again. The abortion medicine was genuine, and even if Hua Tuo were alive, he would not be able to save Cui Xiuyun's child. Upon learning that the child was gone, Cui Xiuyun wept bitterly. Your Majesty, I truly did not betray you. You know that the child in my womb was your child. The Empress, she has such a cruel heart. I knew this would happen, so I deliberately brought her to Shokong Palace to handle it. No matter how dissatisfied Rinzhong was, he couldn't pin this on me. So I looked at Cui Xiuyun in confusion. How can this be blamed on me? Let's not even discuss whether the child in your womb was truly the Emperor's. Even if it was, today's decision was made by the Empress Dowager, who personally ordered you to take the abortion potion. Cui Mei Ren. Are you harboring resentment toward the Empress Dowager with these words? Cui Xiuyun's entry into the palace had caused a stir both inside and outside the palace, and the Empress Dowager had never liked her. So when she heard that Cui Xiuyun was carrying an illegitimate child, she didn't bother to investigate and simply ordered an abortion potion to settle the matter. Upon hearing Cui Xiuyun's words, She didn't bother to argue with her and directly asked Shuzong, "My son, what is the truth about the child in Chui Xiuyun's womb?" Under our intense gaze, Shuzong awkwardly explained, "The child in Chui Xiuyun's womb is indeed mine. But I have already reviewed the imperial records. Chui Marin has not attended to you for 2 months. How could she conceive your child? I just heard from the Empress that you favor this Chui Marin greatly. Do not let your emotions cloud your judgment and mistake a bastard for a royal heir. Your son dares not confuse the imperial bloodline." But the Empress Dowager pressed him. "What else?" During Lady Chui's confinement, I secretly summoned her to the Hall of Austere Governance for an audience. Even after her confinement was lifted, it was because of my secret summons that she became pregnant. Therefore, the imperial records do not mention her attending the emperor's bedchamber. Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager exclaimed in disbelief, "You, the ruler of a nation, have done such a thing? This is truly unheard of." After hearing these words, I looked at Zhu Song with disappointment. Does the emperor truly favor Lady Chui so much? Even while she was under house arrest, he summoned her to serve him. If that is the case, the emperor could have simply told this servant. This servant will not cause the emperor any difficulty. Now that such a huge misunderstanding has occurred, not only has Chui Mei's reputation been ruined, but even the imperial heir has been mistaken for an illegitimate child. This servant truly cannot bear this burden. At this point, I struggled to squeeze 2 tears from my eyes and turned to kneel before the Empress Dowager. "Mother, the loss of the imperial heir is my fault. I am willing to give up my position as empress to compensate for Lady Chui. However, the title of empress is something I dare not accept, and neither the Empress Dowager nor Zhu Song would dare to take it. After all, my father and brothers are still serving at the border. Even if everyone knows that I was the one stirring up trouble, Zhu Song and Chui Xinyan can only swallow this bitter pill in silence." In fact, the Empress Dowager even had to comfort me. She hurriedly helped me up from the ground. "Empress, what are you saying? Since you entered the palace, you have always managed palace affairs diligently. This Chui Mei is merely a concubine who amuses the emperor. How could she be worthy of causing you, the empress of a nation, to abdicate? In my opinion, this Chui beauty was still able to make the emperor think of her constantly even while under house arrest. She is no pushover, considering she has just lost her royal heir. I will not punish her severely. Let her spend a month in the Baohua Palace praying for blessings. This will allow her to reflect on her mistakes and also pray for the soul of her deceased child." The Empress Dowager's plan was completely at odds with Chui Xiuyun's expectations. But she couldn't do anything about the Empress Dowager, so she could only go to Zhu Song for help. "Your Majesty, my child and yours died so tragically." Her heart-wrenching plea moved Zhu Song deeply, and he immediately pleaded with the Empress Dowager. "Mother, Chui Xiuyun has just lost her child. Punishing her by confining her to the Baohua Hall seems a bit harsh, doesn't it?" But the Empress Dowager was someone who either didn't meddle in affairs or, once she did, never changed her mind. Thus, Chui Xiuyun was sent to the Baohua Palace to pray for blessings. As everything was already decided, the Empress Dowager quickly gave Zhu Song a meaningful glance, and he reluctantly helped me up from the ground. As I stood up, I deliberately leaned toward Zhu Song. He instinctively caught me and asked, "What's wrong with the Empress?" "Your Majesty, I feel a bit dizzy. To be honest, I've been feeling unwell lately, with a stuffy chest and nausea. I don't know what's wrong." Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager and Zhu Song were both startled. After all, these symptoms sounded like those of pregnancy. Zhu Song immediately ordered the imperial physician to take my pulse. After carefully examining my pulse, the imperial physician announced joyfully, "Congratulations to the Empress Dowager. Congratulations to the Emperor. And congratulations to the Empress." Your Majesty is with child. What? The Empress Dowager and Zhu Song's cries of surprise rang out simultaneously, sparking speculation. Zhu Song couldn't believe it. How could the Empress be pregnant? Did you take the wrong pulse? After all, every time Zhu Song spent the night in the cunning palace, he would give me a bowl of medicine that was supposed to help me conceive. But after I was reborn, I secretly asked a famous doctor outside the palace to examine the medicine, and it was actually a soup to prevent pregnancy. That's why I had been in the palace for several years in my previous life but never got pregnant. The trick I used to deceive Cui Xiuyun, swapping the fetuses, was something I learned from Zhu Song. But at that moment, I pretended not to know and looked at Zhu Song in confusion. Your Majesty, why can't I conceive? Didn't you order the Imperial Medical Bureau to prepare fertility medicine for me every time? Now that I am pregnant, are you unhappy? Or is it that you only want the child that Cui Marin bears for you? The child in my womb is one you do not want. Hearing this, the Empress Dowager was the first to react, quickly trying to smooth things over. What nonsense are you talking about? Xu Yao, you are the Empress of the Imperial Palace. The child you are carrying is the legitimate heir and the one who will inherit the ancestral legacy. How could the Emperor not want him? It was just a momentary lapse of composure after losing a child earlier. Isn't that right? My son? Mother is right. I was just a little too excited. Now that you are pregnant, you need not worry about palace affairs. When the time comes, you may entrust the management of the palace to Lady Yan and Lady Zhang. This was an opportunity to divide power and sow discord. It doesn't matter. I no longer care about the position of Empress. What I want now is the position of Empress Dowager. After leaving Shou-Kong Palace, the news of my pregnancy spread throughout the palace and beyond. Even my father and brothers stationed at the border sent messages through the frontier, urging me to take care of my pregnancy and instructing the family to keep a low profile and avoid giving others any grounds for accusation. After all, the Mu family holds military power. And now that I am pregnant, there will inevitably be those who harbor ulterior motives. Especially the Empress Dowager and Zhu Song, they must be tossing and turning in bed every night. Humph. Let them suffer. In my previous life, the Mu family was loyal to the end, and I was deeply in love with Zhu Song. Yet we ended up being burned alive. If I hadn't been reborn in time, my soul would still be wandering in the air, watching Cui Xinyan ascend to the position of Empress and Zhu Song betray our family. That would truly be a death with eyes wide open. During this time of nurturing the fetus, I am also preparing to confront my family. After all, with their support, I can achieve my goals. As I pondered how to convince my family, someone came to bring me a pillow. A few days later, the concubines came to pay their respects. Yao Pin entered the cunning palace and mysteriously ordered all the servants to leave. When only we reincarnated concubines remained in the main hall, Yao Pin cut straight to the point. Last night, the Emperor entrusted me with a task. I asked in confusion, "What matter?" The Emperor instructed me to find an opportunity to dispose of your child. The Emperor promised that once your child is gone, he will directly grant me the title of concubine and allow me to co-manage the 6 palaces alongside Yin concubine and Zhang concubine. In truth, none of us were surprised by Yao Pin's words. After all, the Emperor was most skilled at using others to achieve his goals. This was something he had successfully done in his previous life as well. I gave Yao Pin a meaningful look and said, "With such generous terms, aren't you tempted, sister?" Pfft. I'm not tempted at all. The burning sensation from that fire still haunts me in my dreams every night. I swear I'll make that pair of dogs taste the same suffering. Besides, I've come to terms with it. The Emperor doesn't like me anyway, so I don't like him either. Rather than being his concubine and scheming in the palace all day, I'd rather surrender to the Empress. Once the Emperor passes away, I can rely on her influence to become a dowager empress. Keep a few fierce bodyguards in the palace. And live in luxury. How wonderful would that be? As soon as Yao Pin finished speaking, the other concubines rushed to pledge their loyalty to me. Even the concubines with real power in their families promised to persuade their families to support me, hoping to secure a share of the credit for helping me rise to power in the future. With everyone united, we were sure to achieve our goal soon. To avoid arousing Zhu Song's suspicion, Yao Pin and I staged a scene together. While I was strolling in the imperial garden, Yao Pin's beloved dog suddenly charged toward me, colliding with my abdomen and knocking me to the ground, causing me to suffer a miscarriage. Upon investigation, it was discovered that someone had deliberately sprinkled a powder that caused dogs to go mad at the spot where I usually rested. The blame naturally fell on Yao Pin. The emperor, out of consideration for his reputation, had no choice but to punish Yao Pin, demoting her and banishing her to the cold palace. However, she feigned fear and, in front of everyone, shouted that it was the emperor who had ordered her to harm me and my unborn child, leaving Zhu Song speechless with shock. Nonsense! Shu Yao. This Yao Pin must be furious and deliberately trying to sow discord between us. You must not believe her words. You and the emperor are deeply in love, and the child in your womb is his own flesh and blood. How could he harm you and the child? I naturally calmed Zhu Song down. Your Majesty, please rest assured. Such absurd words are not something this concubine would believe. This concubine and your Majesty are deeply in love. And how could your Majesty treat this concubine in such a way? But as soon as I turned around, I wrote a secret letter and had it secretly sent to the border, informing my father and brothers that since Cui Xiuyun entered the palace, Zhu Song had been treating me in such a manner. I told my father and brothers that the emperor suspected the Mu family and did not want to keep the child in my womb, and had already ordered people to harm me on multiple occasions. I pleaded with them to take action on my behalf. I was certain that my father and brothers would believe my words without doubt. After all, it was I who had voluntarily proposed marriage to Zhu Song. My feelings for Zhu Song were a consensus among the entire family. I would never deceive them with such a matter. Meanwhile, Cui Xiuyun had also emerged from the Buddhist temple. Since losing her child, she had fully understood the cruelty of the imperial palace. She had truly learned to lie low. However, the hatred in her eyes toward everyone else was impossible to hide. But it didn't matter, she wouldn't live much longer anyway. 9 months of pregnancy. 1 day of childbirth. On the day I gave birth, several assassins somehow infiltrated the palace. When I was halfway through childbirth, an assassin burst in, intending to kill both me and the child. What was even more despairing was that when the palace attendants went to seek the palace guards, they could not find them, leaving the assassins to rampage freely in the cunning palace. Needless to say, this must have been arranged by Zhu Song. After all, over the past 10 months, he had exhausted every means to abort the child in my womb. Today's assassins must be his final gambit. For once my child is born safely, a sword will hang over his head at all times. No one knows when the sword will fall, severing his head and ushering in a new ruler for the realm. But what he does not know is that I have already made preparations. When the assassins stormed the delivery room, the palace maids guarding the door drew their soft swords from their waists and engaged the assassins in combat. The maids I brought into the palace were all skilled warriors trained by my brothers and uncles. They left them behind as a contingency plan because they didn't trust me to stay alone in the depths of the palace. However, to make the charade complete, after eliminating the assassins, I ordered someone to rush to the Hall of Austere Government to report that the Empress had just given birth to a prince but was injured by the assassins. And both she and the prince had perished. Such news would surely spread throughout the palace in no time. I am certain that my father's spies would also immediately relay this news outside the palace. After receiving my letter, my father, out of concern for my safety, dispatched my elder brother with a contingent of troops to return to the capital. To avoid arousing suspicion, they did not enter the city but instead withdrew to a location several miles outside the capital. However, if they ride swiftly, they should still be able to arrive in time for the palace coup. When I was disguised and hiding behind the screen, Zhu Song arrived in a hurry with Cui Sun. Upon seeing me and the child's body, he flew into a rage and exclaimed, "How could there be assassins in the cunning palace? Investigate this thoroughly. We must ensure justice for the Empress and the child." As expected, the final investigation concluded that the assassin's origins must trace back to the maternal family of a high-ranking concubine. Killing two birds with one stone has always been Zhu Song's favorite strategy. Once everyone had left, Zhu Song no longer bothered to pretend, and excitedly said to Cui Xiaoyun, "Xiaoyun, now that the Empress is finally dead, once I have cleaned up the harem, I will make you Empress." Such empty promises. Yet Cui Xiaoyun clung to them as if they were a treasure. Xiaoyun knows the Emperor has feelings for her. But it's a pity for our child, who was killed by that poisonous Empress. Let her die like this today, it's far too lenient for her. Xiaoyun would rather have her torn to pieces. Don't be sad, Xiaoyun. We'll have many more children in the future. Just then, a loud signal sounded from the sky. This is the secret signal my brother and I agreed on. This means he has already brought his men to the palace. Since that's the case, it's time to show our true colors. As Zhu Song hugged Cui Xiaoyun triumphantly, I walked out from behind the screen. As soon as he saw me, Zhu Song was stunned. Empress. You're not. The last two words were stuck in Zhu Song's throat, unable to be uttered. I finished for him. The Emperor must be thinking that this concubine is already dead, right? Unfortunately, this concubine is very resilient. Even if I die, I can come back to life. Seeing that the situation was not going his way, Zhu Song took 3 steps back and shouted for help. When the guards surrounded him, he finally felt at ease. Now that we were at odds, Zhu Song no longer bothered to pretend. Guards, arrest the Empress. But no one responded, and no one moved. Zhu Song panicked. Don't you dare disobey my orders? Have you all rebelled? I sneered. Congratulations, Your Majesty. You guessed correctly. I, Mu Shuyao, have indeed rebelled. Upon hearing this, Zhu Song was startled, but he managed to regain a shred of his composure. Your father and brothers are far away. What do you have to rebel against me with? Even if you have swayed the palace guards. What then? The secret guards by my side will protect me. After saying this, he clapped his hands 3 times, and several agile figures burst through the windows outside the hall. They were all dressed in black and masked. Clearly the secret guards trained by Zhu Song. I smiled sarcastically. Your Majesty doesn't really think that these few secret guards can match my brother's iron cavalry, do you? Humph. The Empress has a big mouth. Let's not even discuss whether your brother has truly returned to the capital. Even if he is currently in the city, the patrol units inside and outside the palace are no pushovers. Breaking through the palace gates and storming into the cunning palace is no easy feat. At that moment, Lady Yan arrived, shattering his last shred of hope. But Your Majesty, I have already instructed my father to cooperate with the Empress's brother. I'm sure her brother has already entered the palace. And the fireworks were the signal. Yan Guifei. You. Zhu Song never dreamed that Yan Guifei, his sworn enemy, would team up with him to stage a palace coup. After all, in his previous life, under her scheming, they were as incompatible as water and fire, and cooperation was impossible. Zhu Song forced himself to regain his composure and said, Yan Guifei, is the Empress forcing you to do this? If you can convince your father to stop this madness and protect the emperor, once the palace chaos is quelled, I will definitely make you empress." Yan Guifei sneered. "Forget it. The empress you offer me, I wouldn't dare accept. Killing you and letting the empress's son ascend the throne would allow my father to claim the merit of assisting the dragon, which is far better than being used and discarded by you." Seeing that his pleas were futile, Zhu Song made a decisive decision and fled out of the hall. The secret guards protected him as he retreated. But just as they exited the cunning palace, my elder brother shot an arrow that pierced his head. The sight of him bleeding profusely caused Cui Xiaoyun to faint. It was only at that moment that the matter was finally settled. After that harrowing night, the empress was assassinated while giving birth in the palace. When the emperor rushed to the scene, he was struck in the head by an arrow fired by an assassin hiding in the shadows. The news spread throughout the court and the country. The prince I gave birth to was Zhu Song's only son and rightfully inherited the throne. As for Cui Xiaoyun, I will arrange for her to be buried with him. They were supposedly so deeply in love, weren't they? Then let them go to the underworld together. But why did Cui Xiaoyun insist on clinging to my legs begging for mercy? It seems her feelings for Zhu Song weren't that deep after all. But before she could finish speaking, the concubine in the emperor's arms pouted and said, "The emperor burned all the sisters in the harem to death for me. So many lives, it truly troubles Xiaoyun's heart." After the national mourning period ended, my elder brother entered the palace to pay his respects. His face filled with worry. "Empress, this substitution, are you certain it won't cause trouble? If the new emperor's true identity is ever exposed, the reputation of the Mu family will be ruined." "That's right. The new emperor about to ascend the throne is not my biological son. I merely used medicine to disrupt my pulse, making Zhu Song believe I was pregnant. In truth, this child is the offspring of my elder brother and his wife. As soon as I received my elder brother's letter informing me that my sister-in-law was pregnant, I devised this plan and convinced my elder brother and father by using my dire situation in the palace as an excuse. This is also why Zhu Song has tried every means at his disposal but cannot get rid of my child, because I was never pregnant to begin with." As for Zhu Song, he was completely obsessed with manipulating power and pursuing Cui Xiaoyun, and had no interest in verifying whether I was truly pregnant. So I calmly said, "As long as my elder brother and father never lose their power, no one will ever question the new emperor's lineage." My elder brother understood this and withdrew. As for me, naturally, I must go prepare my Empress Dowager's ceremonial attire.